Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm not doing so great. I'm not going to complain. I still love life, but I got a bit of the old dengue fever. It looks like I was vomiting last night, and revision on my sore ankle. I think it might have been the business from the dengue. So we're going to do a short one today. I'm feeling on the mend, but I'm a little bit low. And it's also why I had trouble reading. Remember, I was saying I had trouble reading yesterday for some reason. I've been a little sketchy for the past few days. It's big here on the island. Everyone's getting the dengue. We're going to live. We're fine. Quentin, good morning, Bitcoiners. Defina, live long and pro. We love it. We love it, Defina. We love it. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Matt, good morning, team. Let's stack sats and be happy. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Daniel. Another bright morning in Vermont. Good morning. 68 and sunny in El Salvador. Let's do this. Amazing. 60. What a nice temperature. Awesome. We're a little hot here. The January on my island is pretty good. The temperatures come down. It never gets too hot here, though. It never gets to 90. So we're fine. But a little warmer these days. Happy Tuesday, team. TikTok. I think it's Wednesday, Bitcoin Deb. I think it's Wednesday. Am I wrong? It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, Bitcoin Deb. That's okay. What part of ES are you in, Thomas? We would all love to know that answer, but if you have some OPSEC concerns, you don't need to share. Good morning, Breakup. Get well, Nolan. Thank you, David. Yeah, we're going to be fine. My wife's got it right now, so that's the new thing, right? I'm guessing Invisible Hand is either the BIS, IMF, FBI, USA. No, Muslim Bitcoiner, Assalamu alaikum. We're actually talking about the Invisible Hand from Adam Smith, the incentive structures within capitalist states. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. First, let's acknowledge that we've got a beautiful sunrise, right? The sun is up. We're doing great. And Bitcoin's running. There, we're good. Let's talk about what's new. And we won't talk about my dengue anymore. Just so everyone knows, we're going to be doing a short one today because of this thing. But we're not going to be. You're not going to be getting. We're not going to be screwing you on the deal. You're going to get the full show, and it's going to be fun. It's just going to be a little shorter. And we're going to start with Moscow time, right? We're going to start with Moscow time. So all kinds of people worried about the environment, right? It's the worst. They got a new data point, though. All right, from the Associated Press. Has the planet warmed more than we thought? Ocean sponges might be telling us something. The whole thing is going to be sponges. How do we not know that? The entire history of the world's weather is going to be in the sponges. We're good. We're good. It's going to be great. So the a handful of centuries-old sponges from the deep Caribbean is probably where we can extrapolate all the data we need, right? Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's going to be awesome. Now in America, let's go back to the weather for a second and the electric cars and all that stuff. They're worried about the sponges and other stuff, but it looks like they've actually found the cause of slow electric car sales in the UK, right? They're worried because it sounds like they don't care about the future of the world, those selfish British people. Right, here's what we found out. Mr. Bean, actor Rowan Atkinson blamed for slow electric car sales. The Green Alliance think tank tells peers in the House of Lords the actor's views are damaging to the government's plans for phasing out petrol and diesel vehicles. I mean, space drop Mr. Bean, for sure, for this crime. Jevy's asking, who do we space drop today? Mr. Bean. I mean, people can't buy their electric cars. He criticized them. Jeez. It's terrible. It's terrible. Now we're talking about incentives and the invisible hand today, the Adam Smith concept of what makes capitalism work, the invisible hand. If you understand it, you might have been able to prevent the following headline, but here's what we got. This comes from NPC News in Seattle. It's definitely backfiring. Seattle ordinance intended to help app delivery workers is hurting them. One delivery worker said the new ordinance is hurting drivers and customers. So it turns out they added a $5 surcharge to anyone who delivers, and no one delivers anymore. There's no work. So we could have understood that, right? Oh, this one's great. This is from Newsweek. All right. This is from Newsweek. I don't understand what people have a problem with this for. This is totally normal and totally healthy for New York City. It's awesome, right? If I still lived in New York City, I would say we're doing better than the rest of the world after reading this, because migrants' monthly payments are higher than New York's food stamp benefits. Of course, duh. It's just, it's obvious. Why wouldn't they be? They're new. They need help. It makes sense, right? The stupid old New Yorkers that have been there for a while and are struggling and are poor, get out of here. Get out of here. Come on. We got replacements. We got new people, and they're going to get more money. It's awesome. They get more food stamps. No word yet if they can buy soda with the food stamps, because I know the ones in New York, they spend about 10% of all the food stamp money on Coca-Cola. I think the immigrants are going to be allowed to do that too. So that's good for them. This one's great. Invisible hand again, right? We got another invisible hand here. This one's awesome. The IRS is fighting back against Republican efforts. This is from the Washington Post, obviously, right? Fighting back against Republican efforts to shrink its budget with a new study suggesting how extra investment in the agency would collect billions more dollars from the very rich, guys. It's going to work fine, right? It's the same as the delivery thing in Seattle. Don't worry about it. It's just get the money and it's going to be fine, right? Just go increase taxes. You're going to get more money. It's that simple. It really is that simple. What are we sitting around here for, thinking about all these engineering dynamics of capitalism and the separation of money and state? It's much simpler than that. Just increase taxes and it's going to work out, right? Washington Post told you it's going to be fine. We got a nice Phil Bump one here, right? This is a nice Phil Bump one here. Of course, the something about the docs, maybe the January 6th thing, the Jack Smith case, something happened. Trump yesterday is not, apparently all the newspapers are letting us know that he doesn't have global unlimited immunity. That's the big news, right? So Phil Bump says, another ally of Donald Trump is forced to concede its part in spreading misinformation. It's doubtful Trump will before November's election, right? So many election deniers faced accountability, not the one on the ballot. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Now, this is great. So I remember I've told you guys before that I think that President Biden is the Craig Wright of presidents, right? He's the Craig Wright of presidents. And weirdly, yesterday, Craig Wright had his trial. And everyone was kind of laughing at Craig Wright because the whole thing is, no, but if you look in document X, you'll find out that document Y is actually document Z, and document Z is actually document A. And if you look at document A, the truth is clear in document H. Come on. So he just lies in a circle. So apparently everyone in the audience is sort of furious because he just will continue to lie and obfuscate. And it's so obvious, the lies, that it has that twinge of irritability that comes with it. Now, I've said to you before that Joe Biden and Craig Wright are the same person. They're the same person. There's no difference. And yesterday we got the benefit of hearing Joe Biden and Craig Wright lie at the same time. And it looks identical. I can't tell the picture. I like the meme, you know, the one from The Office. You're looking at the same picture. That's what I see now. It's Joe Biden and Craig Wright are the same person. I don't know what else to say. Here's the lies that Biden said yesterday that looked a lot like what our friend Craig Wright was saying. This is what he says. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump. He gets more. Biden vows to make the apparent collapse of a border security compromise a major issue in his campaign, saying the bipartisan effort to tackle immigration is on life support as Trump wants to weaponize the nation's immigration quagmire for political gain. Oh, terrible. There's more. It gets better. This is from MSNBC. Biden blames Trump on the likely bipartisan border bill failing. He'd rather weaponize the border than solve it. Tells GOP to show a little spine and stand up to Trump. We've got more. We've got to move past the toxic politics. This is from Biden. We got to move past it, guys. Come on, let's just move past it. It's time to stop playing games with the world waiting and watching. And by the way, the world is waiting. The world is watching. Now, of course, Scott Jennings writes that Biden thinks this will work speaks to just how stupid they believe voters are. They are screaming at you. We think you are this stupid. Outrageous. But again, like I'm saying, the lying is as transparent on both of them. I think my prediction or my observation that Joe Biden is the Craig Wright of presidents is spot on, especially after yesterday. The lying was identical. It was perfect. It couldn't have been better. I couldn't have written it better myself. We got one more from the Washington Poop here, and it's on Tucker Carlson. Listen to how they describe Tucker Carlson's interview. The whole mainstream media losing its mind yesterday because of the Putin interview, right? Here's what he says. Here's what the Washington Post says. Tucker Carlson, who has hosted an online video series on the social media platform X since he was fired by Fox News last spring, announced on Tuesday he will soon conduct an interview with President Putin. So you see how they try to like shame him and embarrass him, and that's the whole trick. Well, our theme today being on the invisible hand is really about looking at the forces that are making the current USD system work. Now, the original definition of invisible hand were those forces that allowed people to the unseen forces within the economy, right? Where the incentives actually come from. There's people who say it's, force was a part of it, right? That don't deny that was always a part of it. That's one of Bitcoiners' main criticisms about how capitalism worked and the wealth of nations functioned under the system where the government prints its own money. That wasn't the case when Adam Smith wrote the book, right? So he didn't really gauge on the effect that a government and bureaucracy would have on it. Of course, media, bankers, all of these people, business owners, they're the ones who help develop these incentives, and they're the ones who help guide this invisible hand to, at one time, a very successful model of capitalism. But like all things, entropy sets into a system, and the invisible hand now is relying on things that are not so much the incentives of bosses making more money, or a system delivering health or wealth or information that you can use. It's not that at all anymore. It's actually all designed now for people to lie and get what they want out of manipulating the system in a way that's not transparent and not obvious, right? So you can see bosses, for example, right? We have this case yesterday with Gina Corano, right? And she's complaining about what happened in Disney. So she was fired from Disney, and all kinds of people said she didn't deserve to be fired. She was great. She was on the Mandalorian show. Apparently she insulted someone saying beep, bop, boop, and then she got fired. So now and apparently for a long time, there was a lot of death threats against her for being critical of something or other, or pronouns. But Disney never defended her and fired her. So now Elon Musk has joined her in a lawsuit and is supporting her lawsuit against DEI stuff over at Disney. And apparently it's pretty bad. Now, I don't know all the details on it, but what we can see from it is that the corporate lens of bosses that would go in the invisible hand has already been compromised, and they're looking at things that are just absolutely crazy, right? But that's just one example, right? It's not just so much Disney and Gina Carano. That's important in understanding how these incentives are already broken. Beep, bop, boop. Yeah, that was it. And it's not probably getting better in that fiat system. But here's a really great breakdown from Martyr Made about what's going on with Tucker's interview of Putin, right? And I think this is spot on. He says, Tucker's interview of Putin is important. The entirety of regime strategy towards Russia depends on preventing Americans from even hearing the Russian point of view, or failing that, to so demonize Putin that the people refuse to listen. Reality, and this is obvious, we wouldn't allow Russia or China to expand a military alliance to our border. No country capable of resisting would allow it. Yet we not only attempted it, but sponsored a coup against Ukraine's elected government to carry it out, followed by hordes of politically connected vultures like Hunter Biden swooping in to sell their influence to oligarchs who didn't want to be left out in the cold. Our puppets in Kiev have since banned all opposition parties, assassinated critics, canceled elections, suppressed the Russian Orthodox Church, and are shot through with people who carried out countless atrocities against ethnic Russians in the aftermath of the Maidan coup. Russia for years participated in the Minsk negotiations, which would have allowed Ukraine to retain the eastern part of the country with reasonable safeguards for the people there. But Western leaders have now admitted that the negotiations were fake, a ploy to string Russia along until we could equip and train a Ukrainian army to fight them. When Zelensky and Putin had a deal in principle early in the war, perhaps 1 million casualties ago, Boris Johnson flew out to warn Zelensky that if he tried to spare the lives of his countrymen by cutting a deal, we would leave him and his wrecked country into the wolves. We blackmailed the Ukrainians into sending hundreds of thousands to die against dug-in Russian defenses. And for what? U.S. politicians and defense officials from Lindsey Graham to Dan Crenshaw have stated the purpose out loud. We want nothing more complicated than to kill Russians without risking American lives. Just imagine if Russia was funding the Iraq or Afghan insurgency and their prominent leaders were saying in public that their only goal was to see American soldiers die. Anyone remotely familiar with our history of our post-Cold War relations with Russia knows that we have absolutely no moral authority in Ukraine. But just look what he said about the blackmail piece, right? Now go to what we saw yesterday on the border vote. You know, they tried to impeach Mayorkas. So it's not, pardon me, not the border vote. The border vote was another issue altogether. The Mayorkas impeachment. They tried to impeach the Department of Homeland Security chairperson yesterday, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. And what did we find out? But 4 Republicans broke ranks and voted to keep him in place, right? So what I see there, and again, go back to this invisible hand piece, is we don't really even understand how much blackmail is at play within these motivations, within these incentives. I think, like Madison Cawthorn, the wheelchair congressman who got kicked out, said, it's much, much bigger than we think. And in the case of Mayorkas, I think it's pretty obvious. Now you have the usual suspects, Ken Buck. You've also got this fella who's the one who really caused the problem was Mike Gallagher, a Wisconsin representative. And it turns out that the Wisconsin Republican who voted against this chairs the House Committee on China. Now, I don't know where the blackmail is coming from, but whatever we see going on with Mayorkas at the border is 100% involved with blackmail. We can't see the invisible hand. We can't understand anyone's incentives. We can't really understand what's going on there at all. It's almost impossible. Now you'll hear what Elon Musk says. The whole point is to rig the elections with that. I think that's part of it. That's part of it. But more importantly, and let's go back to what Martyr Maid said about Tucker and Putin, right? So saying again that the point was to hide and obfuscate what's going on. The whole strategy is so that we don't understand what the Russian point of view is, because it's the only way we can make it. But here's the interesting thing. And remember what I told you at the beginning of the week when we knew Tucker was doing this interview, that the most relevant bombshell pieces are going to be about global banking, the financial system, BRICS, the dollar, all of that stuff. And indeed, Tucker released 2 promo videos yesterday pumping up the thing. One was excusing himself for doing the interview, which is, we're not even going to talk about it. He had to do it because of the maniacs. But truthfully, his other video to pump and advertise the interview was the following, right? Tucker Carlson says the dominance of the US dollar is coming apart very fast. He's in Moscow to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin, who's pushing BRICS nations to ditch the US dollar and trade directly in local currencies and commodities. Now, you know that I don't believe BRICS is going to work. Like, it's not going to work, right? Like, you can't replace the US dollar shitcoin with another shitcoin from China or Russia. Like, it's not going to work. But nevertheless, it's really the avenue that Bitcoiners have now. When we have these 2 groups fighting over a new world reserve currency, it creates a void. It creates a space for us to operate. And indeed, when we start thinking about blackmail and shaming, oh, Tucker, let's shame him. Or why don't we create this ridiculous structure for bosses to include DEI? Or why don't we just have blackmail throughout our entire system so we can't understand what's going on at the border or anywhere in our system? So it turns out that we've got this opportunity now that the transparency that is completely gone from the capitalist system, from the US dollar system. Now, I'm a capitalist. I don't mean to criticize capitalism, but we don't have that, right? We've absolutely got some form of socialism, way too big of a government to even have the natural flow of the invisible hand about us anymore. Indeed, it is all about their power and their ability to obfuscate and manipulate and make things invisible, right? They decide what is invisible, and that helps guide this US dollar hegemony strategy. So we have as a mixed economy. Yeah, sure. So when we have the One Nation Under Blackmail book sums it up, right? So the future, as far as I can tell here, is that the outrage that we see with the border and our inability to understand it, we're going to understand it, because in the end, we don't understand the blackmail pieces of it. Now, one of the good a piece of good news about this is that we are going to finally understand it, right? When we saw those 4 Republicans yesterday vote against it, and simultaneous to that, right, we've got Tucker telling you that the change with BRICS is a big deal. But here's the story that Bitcoiners paid attention to yesterday that flew over most people's heads because of so much going on, Mayorkas and Trump and this and that and Putin and Tucker, right? But our old friend Janet Yellen came and talked yesterday, right? Our old friend Janet Yellen, right? Janet Yellen. Don't audit the Fed, Janet Yellen. And what did that little gnome say? What did she say? She said that the Congress should legislate crypto assets that are not securities, which is a very strange thing to say because there's only one crypto asset that's not a security. It's Bitcoin. So she goes to Congress yesterday and tells them to regulate and legislate Bitcoin in particular, because now what we see is the invisible hand that ran the USD system is breaking. It can't do its job anymore. The blackmail is not going to work much longer. They're down to 4 blackmailed Republican congressmen who are losers. And I think Trump, as a prime minister, is going to whip the shit out of them. These guys are about to get whipped like crazy, right? And Trump will primary them. And so you're gonna get to the bottom of it on the Republican side. I think you're gonna get to the bottom of the China thing, the blackmail, what's going on with that. And that is going to put a pretty big stink on the US system, which we love, right? We're not here to blow sunshine up the ass of the US dollar system or the Republicans or Trump, or we love Trump, but we're not here to say, Trump's going to fix everything. He's getting the poison out of the system, but we have to rebuild the system. And so she comes out with that odd thing to say, right? Like they have to regulate Bitcoin. What? Why yesterday? Why is Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, headed to Congress yesterday to specifically tell them to regulate Bitcoin, not crypto? She told the SEC they should regulate Bitcoin, which is hilarious and funny. So you've got this situation where Tucker is going to be exposing the problems with US dollar hegemony in the world. It's going to be related to blackmail, obfuscation, and the compromised nature of our media and our politicians. And the contrast is going to be this effort to suppress Bitcoin because it is literally the only thing that they have to close. It's the only way to bet against the US in a way that supports everything Tucker is about to say, everything that anyone who criticizes the United States has to say. So I think the timing yesterday of the Tucker interview and what I've been saying for a long time with these brick systems, right, is that it's opening the door, it's creating a vacuum. Bitcoin will fill the vacuum. It will become the psychological reference for energy because the energy markets run America, right? They run America. They're at the top of all of this blackmail and everything. Now, they don't want to see their money go down because of incompetence, right? They don't want that. Just like BlackRock doesn't want that. They don't want exposure to idiots and losers. They're not all in on it, right? In the sense that everyone knows where they're going and it's an efficient machine. Everyone in the invisible hand way has their own incentives. Energy companies just want to make money and they don't want to have to deal with foreign competition. And it made sense to go loot the Ukrainian energy supplies and destroy America's competitor in Russia so that you could dominate the LNG network markets in Germany and Europe. I get why they did it, right? And remember, the Nord Stream pipeline, forget about who did it exactly. American energy companies backstopped it. They allowed it to happen by saying, Europe, you will not run out of energy. We have all the energy you need. So US energy companies are going to have a choice to make soon. Are they going to continue with a system filled with blackmail people that is only creating anger and resentment, or are they going to come up with their own plan? And I think they're going to come up with their own plan. So the Yellen thing ain't going to work, right? Yellen, again, we're up against Yellen is who they got. This is who they sent to deal with us. This is the best they have, right? She's not great. She's not great. So the good news is we're getting there. We've got this ridiculous Homeland Security vote. I believe it'll be clear. I believe this vote will help us uncover some of the blackmail logic that we see out there. So hopefully. All right, team. It's a short one today. I got the dengue. I'm not myself. I didn't want to leave you guys hanging and all that stuff. So feeling a little better. Half socialism, half property rights. Yeah. David Wilby, what's up, my man? I get it now. We say that we like Taylor Swift as to not play into the pettiness of it all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And she won't be able to affect much. I mean, people can say, oh, we're not in the world anymore where the invisible hand of celebrity is going to push votes in one way. We're in the world of personal security now. We're in the world of health and wealth, and selfish choices are going to be made for individual prosperity. And that's a good thing, right? So they can believe she's going to turn votes, but we already saw it. They tried this. This is not new. They tried it in 2018. She actively campaigned against the Senate election in Nashville, and she failed. So Mr. Bean is the goat. Yeah, I'm feeling better already, guys. I don't have much stamina. I haven't eaten in a day and a bit now, so I didn't eat a bite yesterday. I still haven't eaten today, but just too much vomiting yesterday. Dengue, if you guys didn't hear, I got the dengue, but we're getting better. Health is wealth, indeed. All right, team. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.